Chris Gardner's journey began in the most difficult of circumstances, shaped by struggles that many would find impossible to overcome. Born into poverty, his early years were anything but easy. His mother was a source of strength in his life, but his stepfather was abusive, creating an unstable and often frightening home environment. Growing up in such conditions, he quickly learned that survival required resilience and determination. From a young age, he had to navigate a world where security was never guaranteed and hardship was a daily reality. These early experiences instilled in him a sense of independence and a fierce desire to create a better life. Despite the chaos in his household, education was something he valued deeply. He admired his mother's strength and intelligence, and her encouragement fueled his belief that he was capable of achieving great things. However, financial struggles meant that college was not an option for him, and instead he had to find his own way in the world. He joined the Navy, hoping to build a foundation for himself. His time in the military gave him discipline, structure, and a strong work ethic, which would later serve him well in the challenges ahead. After leaving the Navy, he explored different career paths, but stability remained elusive. As he moved through life, he encountered one roadblock after another. He found work in medical sales, making just enough to get by. Though he worked hard, he knew that his job offered little opportunity for advancement. He dreamed of something greater, of financial security, of being able to provide for his family without constantly worrying about the next paycheck. He wanted to create a different future, but at the time, the path to that future was unclear. Then, everything changed when he saw a man step out of a red Ferrari. Unlike most people who admired the car, he was more interested in the man who owned it. He approached him and asked a simple question, "What do you do?" The answer was stockbroking. That moment was life-changing. He had finally found a direction, a career that could potentially lift him out of his struggles. Determined to break into the financial world, he set his sights on becoming a stockbroker. However, the journey would not be easy. He had no formal education in finance, no experience, and no connections. Yet he was willing to do whatever it took to make his dream a reality. He started applying for training programs at brokerage firms, but rejection after rejection came his way. The industry was highly competitive, and without the right background, few were willing to give him a chance. But he did not let rejection deter him. He kept pushing, making calls, showing up at offices, and speaking to anyone who would listen. His persistence eventually paid off when he landed an unpaid internship at a prestigious firm. It was an opportunity, but it came with its own set of challenges. An unpaid internship meant that there was no salary, no way to support himself or his family. Around the same time, his personal life took a devastating turn. His relationship with his partner fell apart and she left, taking most of their possessions with her. The only thing she didn't take was the most important part of his life, his son. Left with a young child to care for, no money and no home, he found himself in a situation that most would find hopeless. Homelessness was never something he imagined he would face, but it became his reality. He and his son were forced to sleep in shelters, churches, and even public restrooms at train stations. Every night was a struggle, filled with uncertainty about where they would sleep and whether they would have enough to eat. Despite these overwhelming challenges, he refused to give up on his dream. Every morning he dressed in the best clothes he had, held his head high, and walked into the brokerage firm as if nothing was wrong. He never let his colleagues know that after work he had no home to go to. He knew that if he showed any sign of struggle, it could cost him the opportunity of a lifetime. He had to succeed, not just for himself, but for his son. His internship required him to compete against others, all of whom had more resources and fewer struggles than he did. While they spent their evenings studying comfortably, he spent his nights figuring out where he and his son would sleep. But he did not let that slow him down. He worked harder than anyone else, making more cold calls, learning faster, and proving his worth in every way possible. His daily routine was exhausting, yet he never lost focus. He would wake up early to get his son to daycare, then rush to work and push himself to be the best intern in the room. After work, he would pick up his son, stand in line at shelters, hoping for a bed, and if none were available, find a safe place for them to sleep. He survived on minimal sleep, never complaining, never losing sight of his goal. He kept telling himself that this struggle was temporary, that success was within reach if he just held on a little longer. As weeks turned into months, he continued to push through the difficulties. His determination caught the attention of the people around him. He was not just another intern, he was someone who was willing to go beyond what was expected, someone who refused to quit. Though no one at the firm knew of his personal struggles, they saw his drive and the results he delivered. While many in his position would have crumbled under the pressure, he thrived, turning every obstacle into motivation. Through sheer willpower, he positioned himself as a top contender for the full-time role at the firm. He knew that his entire future depended on securing that job. Every day, he treated it as if it were a final test, knowing that any mistake could cost him everything. He studied the markets relentlessly, memorized financial reports, and refined his sales pitch. He made sure that when decision time came, there would be no doubt that he was the right choice. The fear of failure lingered, but it was drowned out by his determination to succeed. The moment of truth arrived when the firm had to decide which intern would be hired. The competition had been fierce, and he knew that his background was different from the others. But what he lacked in traditional qualifications, he made up for in passion, work ethic, and an unstoppable drive. He had given everything he had to prove himself. The struggles, the sleepless nights, and the sacrifices all led to this defining moment. Chris Gardner's path to success was anything but easy. After securing an unpaid internship at a prestigious brokerage firm, he faced obstacles that most people would find insurmountable. Without a salary, he had no financial security, no savings, and no place to call home. With his young son depending on him, he had to navigate each day with careful precision, ensuring that he could balance his responsibilities as both a father and a professional striving for success. Every morning he woke up determined, pushing himself forward with an unwavering belief that he could change his life. His days started early, long before the sun rose. He had to get his son ready, drop him off at daycare, and arrive at work on time. This was no ordinary job. This was an environment where competition was fierce, and only one intern would be chosen for a full-time position. While others had the luxury of stability, he was constantly fighting an invisible battle. Despite the exhaustion from nights spent in shelters or public restrooms, he walked into the office with the same level of energy and enthusiasm as his peers. No one knew that when the workday ended, he had no home to return to. With limited resources, he had to be strategic in everything he did. He couldn't afford to waste time. While other interns made calls at a normal pace, he found ways to increase his efficiency. He developed a system, refining his approach to get through more calls in less time, knowing that every single connection could bring him closer to securing a position. He listened carefully to experienced brokers, observing their techniques and adapting them to his style. He absorbed information like a sponge, staying late whenever possible to study financial reports and market trends. He was determined to outperform everyone in the room. At the end of the day, while other interns went home to relax, he had to face a different reality. His priority was always his son, ensuring that he was fed and taken care of before worrying about where they would sleep. Some nights they found a spot in a shelter, but space wasn't always available. On the nights they were turned away, he had to be creative. Sometimes sleeping in subway stations, sometimes finding a corner in a public bathroom where they could rest for a few hours. Despite the hardships, he never allowed himself to feel defeated. He reassured his son that things would get better, even when he wasn't sure how. The pressures of work and survival continued to mount, but he refused to let his circumstances dictate his performance. He couldn't afford distractions, so he stayed laser-focused on his tasks. He knew that securing a single client could set him apart from the rest, so he dedicated himself to making as many calls as possible. He learned how to handle rejection, understanding that each no brought him one step closer to a yes. He developed resilience, recognizing that persistence was the key to success. As weeks turned into months, the strain of his double life became more intense. He was constantly running on little sleep, managing the emotional weight of his struggles while putting on a confident front at work. He didn't have the luxury of showing weakness. He had to remain composed, always appearing as if he had everything under control. He refused to let anyone know the depth of his challenges, fearing that if they found out, they might see him as unfit for the role. Even as exhaustion crept in, he continued to push forward. He found ways to stay motivated, reminding himself of the future he was working toward. He envisioned the life he wanted to create for his son, a life of stability, security, and opportunity. That vision fueled him through the toughest moments, allowing him to endure when others might have given up. The work environment was intense, filled with highly driven individuals who were all competing for the same goal. Many of them had connections, mentors, and financial support, giving them advantages he did not have. But he refused to see himself as less than anyone else. He believed that hard work, persistence, and determination could level the playing field. He studied harder, made more calls, and found ways to maximize every second of his time. While the internship was unpaid, the cost of failure was greater for him than for anyone else. If he didn't secure the position, he and his son would continue to struggle with homelessness. There was no backup plan, no safety net. That reality pushed him to give everything he had. He operated with the mindset that failure was not an option. Despite the immense pressure, he maintained a positive attitude. He didn't allow self-doubt to take hold. Every morning he reminded himself that he was capable, that he had just as much right to be there as anyone else. He carried himself with confidence, making sure that he was always prepared for any challenge that came his way. His ability to stay composed under pressure made an impression on those around him. Even though he was just an intern, he acted like he belonged in the industry. The demands of the job increased as the internship progressed. Expectations grew higher, and the competition became more intense. He had to work even harder to prove himself. He continued to refine his approach, learning from every mistake and adjusting his strategy. He paid close attention to what made the top brokers successful and implemented those techniques into his daily routine. As the final decision loomed, he knew that his future rested on the impression he had made. He had done everything in his power to demonstrate his value, but there were no guarantees. He had outworked his peers, pushed himself beyond his limits, and overcome obstacles that no one else in the office had faced. He had given everything he had to make sure that he stood out. The only question now was whether it would be enough. After months of relentless effort, everything came down to a single decision. The internship had been the most challenging experience of his life, not just because of the high expectations at the brokerage firm, but because he had endured struggles that none of his colleagues could have imagined. Each day had been a test of endurance, juggling responsibilities at work with the overwhelming stress of not having a home for himself and his son. Every morning he walked into the office with the same determination, refusing to let his hardships define him. He had spent every ounce of energy proving that he was not only capable, but that he was the best choice for the full-time position. The competition had been fierce, with many other interns vying for the same opportunity. They had financial security, stable homes, and support systems, but he had something they didn't: an unshakable will to succeed. Throughout the internship, he had developed a reputation for being relentless. He was the intern who made the most calls, the one who stayed the latest studying market trends, the one who seemed to possess an unstoppable drive. He had learned to push past rejection, treating every no as a step closer to a yes. He had refined his communication skills, mastering the art of persuasion, understanding how to build trust with clients, and proving that he could bring value to the company. He wasn't just working to get hired, he was working as though his life depended on it, because in many ways it did. The day the firm made its decision was a moment he had been anticipating with both hope and fear. He had done everything possible to stand out, but there were no guarantees. The moment he was called in, his heart pounded. This was it. The moment that would determine whether all his sacrifices, all his struggles, and all the nights spent without a home had been worth it. When they told him he had been chosen for the position, he felt a rush of emotions: relief, gratitude, and an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. He had done it. He had earned his place in a world that once seemed unreachable. The job came with a salary, and with that, the ability to finally provide stability for his son. No longer would he have to worry about where they would sleep or whether they would have enough to eat. The struggle that had defined his life for so long was beginning to change. He moved into an apartment, a place they could call home. The simple act of having a key to a door that was theirs meant everything. It wasn't just a place to live. It was proof that perseverance had led him out of darkness. With financial stability came new challenges. Now that he had secured a position, he had to prove that he could thrive in the industry. The world of stockbroking was demanding, fast-paced and unforgiving. The pressure was intense, but he thrived on it. He poured himself into his work, learning from experienced brokers, studying market trends, and building relationships with clients. He understood that success in this field wasn't just about numbers. It was about trust, strategy, and relentless effort. His workdays were long, often starting before sunrise and ending late at night. While others worked hard, he worked even harder. He had spent too much time fighting for this opportunity to let it slip away. He continued to refine his skills, mastering the nuances of the stock market, understanding economic trends, and finding ways to anticipate shifts before they happened. He was determined to rise, not just to be another broker, but to be the best. Success didn't come overnight. He faced setbacks, difficult clients, and moments of doubt, but he never allowed obstacles to slow him down. Every challenge was another opportunity to grow, to learn, and to push himself further. He embraced failures as lessons, understanding that in a field as competitive as stockbroking, resilience was the key to long-term success. Over time, his efforts began to pay off. He started building a strong client base, earning commissions, and gaining recognition within the firm. The more he achieved, the more he wanted to accomplish. He had proven that he could survive, but now he wanted more than survival. He wanted to build something lasting. He knew that true success wouldn't come from working for someone else forever. He had a vision for something greater. He dreamed of owning his own firm, of creating a company that reflected his values, one where people from all backgrounds could have the opportunities he had fought so hard to earn. Taking the leap into entrepreneurship was a risk, but he had spent his entire life taking risks. He had already overcome homelessness, financial ruin, and countless rejections. He had built himself from the ground up, and now he was ready to take control of his future. With the same determination that had carried him through his lowest moments, he founded his own brokerage firm. Starting a business came with new challenges. There were financial risks, competition, and the weight of responsibility that came with running a company. But he embraced the challenge, knowing that every struggle he had faced before had prepared him for this moment. He built his firm with integrity, focusing on relationships, trust, and the kind of hard work that had always defined him. As his company grew, so did his impact. He was no longer just working to build his own success. He was creating opportunities for others. He hired people who, like him, had faced struggles, giving them the chance to prove themselves. He mentored young professionals, sharing the lessons he had learned along the way. He believed in lifting others up, in showing that no matter where someone started, success was possible. His story became one of inspiration, proof that perseverance and belief in oneself could overcome even the most overwhelming challenges. The man who had once slept in subway station bathrooms was now a respected entrepreneur, a millionaire, and a role model for countless others who faced struggles of their own. He had not only changed his life, he had shown the world that anything was possible with relentless determination. Achieving financial success was only part of the journey. After years of struggle, overcoming homelessness, and fighting for a place in the competitive world of stockbroking, there was finally a sense of stability. No longer did nights have to be spent worrying about where to sleep or how to put food on the table. The sacrifices and hardships had led to something tangible: a career, a home, and a future that had once seemed impossible. But financial stability alone was not enough. There was something deeper, a calling to do more, to give back, and to use the experiences of the past to inspire and help others. The lessons learned through struggle were too valuable to keep to himself. They had to be shared so that others facing similar obstacles could see that they too had the power to change their lives. There was a time when survival was the only focus, when each day was about making it to the next. But now there was an opportunity to create something meaningful, something lasting. There were people in the world who needed hope, who needed to see proof that their circumstances did not define them. He understood what it meant to feel hopeless, to be dismissed, to be told no at every turn. He also knew that persistence, belief, and resilience could turn even the darkest situations into something extraordinary. Success was never meant to be just for himself. It had to be shared, used to lift others up and show them what was possible. There was a passion for speaking to those who were struggling, for reaching out to people who felt like they had no way out. The past was not something to be hidden or forgotten. It was the foundation of everything that had been built. Every failure, every rejection, and every moment of despair had shaped the journey. It was important for others to see that the road to success was not smooth, that it was filled with setbacks and hardships, but that every challenge could be overcome with the right mindset. It was not enough to simply tell people that anything was possible. They had to see it, believe it, and understand that success was not reserved for the privileged. Anyone willing to work relentlessly to keep moving forward despite adversity could create a future beyond their imagination. Whether speaking to students, aspiring entrepreneurs, or people struggling with poverty and homelessness, the message remained the same. There is always a way forward. Philanthropy became a natural extension of success. The struggles of the past had instilled a deep sense of responsibility to help others. It was not just about financial contributions, but about providing opportunities, investing in education, mentoring young professionals, and supporting programs that helped people develop the skills they needed to succeed became priorities. There were so many people in the world with potential, people who just needed a chance, someone to believe in them, just as he had once needed someone to take a chance on him. Writing and storytelling became powerful tools. Sharing experiences through books and public speaking allowed the message to reach even more people. There was no desire to portray a perfect journey, only a real one that showed the raw, unfiltered truth of struggle and triumph. Honesty was crucial because people needed to understand that success was not instant, that there were failures, disappointments along the way, but that perseverance would always win in the end. Looking back, it was impossible to ignore the people who had played a role in shaping the journey. The lessons from childhood, the inspiration from those who had led by example, and the people who had shown kindness in the darkest times all contributed to the person he had become. The belief that helping others was not just a choice, but an obligation grew stronger with each passing year. It was never just about making money. It was about making a difference. Reaching a point of success brought a new challenge: staying grounded. The world of finance was fast-paced, demanding, and often focused solely on profit. But money had never been the true motivation. The drive had always come from something deeper: the desire to create a life of meaning and to ensure that no one had to go through the same struggles without knowing that there was a way out. Staying connected to that purpose was essential. No matter how much success came, the lessons of hardship could never be forgotten. There was also an awareness that not everyone would believe in the possibility of transformation. Some would always doubt, always question whether true change was possible. But that only fueled the desire to keep proving that it was. There was no need to convince everyone, only to reach the ones who were ready to believe in themselves. If even one person could take inspiration and change their own life, then the effort was worth it. Traveling to different places, speaking to different audiences, and engaging with people from all walks of life reinforced one truth: struggle was universal, but so was resilience. People from every background, every culture, and every circumstance faced hardships, but within them was the same potential to rise above it. There was a deep connection with those who had experienced failure, rejection, and loss because those experiences had once been all too familiar. The message remained the same wherever it was shared. Success was not about where a person started, but about how they chose to move forward. Even with all the achievements, the work was never finished. There were always more people to reach, more lives to impact, and more ways to give back. The journey had never been about reaching a final destination. It was about constantly growing, evolving, and helping others do the same. Every challenge overcome was a lesson to be shared, a testament to the fact that no obstacle was insurmountable. The true measure of success was not in wealth or status, but in the ability to inspire and uplift others. The goal was never just to succeed alone, but to open doors for others to follow. The story was no longer just about personal triumph, but about creating a legacy of hope, resilience, and the unwavering belief that anything is possible.